Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine as we now take a step into round 6 of the 2025 season. And I must say, it's been a very tight one, to say the least, with a mere 20 points separating one Freddie Slater, who sits at the top of the championship for Prema, with Mattia De Paolo locked in behind as well in second place. My name is George Morgan, your commentator, as always, as well as alongside Chris McCarthy for the 2025 season. Of course, we're going to be here now on our sixth stop on the calendar in what I'm sure will be quite the contest. We've alluded to the championship and how it currently looks. At the moment, Freddie Slater on a 3-race winning run so far that really began at Hungaroring, but he had 2 wins prior to that at Spa-Francorchamps and Zandvoort. But it was the double victory weekend back at Paul Ricard that has really cemented his place up at the top. But there are still points that can be won and lost, and still within a win gap are our front 2 in the championship. Of course, Pedro Clero not immensely far away, 62 points away from Freddie Slater as it stands. And further back then, of course, we do have Enzo Dellini, who sits on pole position after undoing what was a sensational lap by Freddie Slater of a 1:38.646. After he nestled that in from Group A, and Enzo Dellini managing to nestle in the fastest time in Group B with a 1:38.585. With the sun now beaming down across the circuit as well, temperatures reaching at the moment 26.3 degrees. The track itself, fresh off the back of plenty of on-track action already, 42 degrees in temperature. A lot vaster than what we had in qualifying earlier on this morning. But as you can see, a very active pit lane down there right now, with many of the teams and the drivers, as well as the cars themselves, getting set to line up ahead of what will be a really extraordinary race, I'm sure, leading us through to the first half of the weekend. Of course, we do have race 2 to come tomorrow, so plenty of positions could be changed up as we enter the fray here at Imola. As we now take a look at the 23, now making his way on the circuit. That is, of course, Enzo Dellini, top of the shop at the end of playing qualifying this morning, and be hoping to see whether he can take it from lights to flag. But there have been some threats, some murmurings of rain as well this weekend. And we have had rain as well, but it was way before this session was due to start. It was expected to be that way, but you never know. Things can change very quickly, and it could yet return. There was some debating as to whether we would start on the wet tyres. Many of the teams, some of the drivers as well, further down the grid, saying we might even just opt for slicks if there are wet conditions in, obviously, foreseeing the potential change-up that we could have seen during the session, going from a wet weather track to a dry track. At the moment, though, the track is declared dry, so no concerns with regards to that. So there will be the dry version of the Pirelli tyre embraced by every single driver and team on the grid for this race in particular. It's going to be a spicy one, to say the least. On the second row as well, you do have Akshay Bora and Pedro Clero. Bora, really impressive, largely, in that second group. Of course, Group B that went out after Group A, and unfortunately wasn't quite fast enough to go higher than his own teammate Enzo Dellini, but it was Dellini's second sector split that really made the difference. Of course, remember, he has been in a bit of a blip as of late. Didn't quite go to plan back at Paul Ricard, and neither did Hungaroring after losing the podium due to an infraction that he had made. So had lost the P3 that he'd managed to nestle in, but this is his chance to right the wrong here at Imola, at a track where RHGP have had victories in the past from the likes of Martinia Stenshorn back in 2023, and also in terms of actual qualifyings, we did see Martinia Stenshorn and Tim Tramnitz actually that same year. It was an RHGP blanket weekend back in 2023, but it's going, it could largely be a different story this time. But Freddie Slater, I'm sure, will be keen to carry on the run that he is on at the moment, currently on 5 wins, and against the historical stats, he will join Andre Kimi, Stenshorn and GSD. Let's head down to the pit lane, or down to the grid with Laura.
So Freddie, 20 points between you and Mattia De Paolo. Are you looking for the 6th win of the season?
Yeah, of course. I'm going to try and win this race if I can. But, you know, it's a long way to go, and to be honest, I don't really care about the championship until Monza, so at this point it's just about getting on with it and trying to win the race, and yeah, we'll see where we end up at the end.
Brilliant stuff there, Freddie Slater, just giving us some insight. Big thank you to Laura as well for getting him just before he goes into race mode. Of course, it won't be too long before they do take the green lights, folks, and we're going to be in for a real treat, I'm sure, where Dellini as far as Delaney and, of course, Freddie Slater are concerned. Two very skilled drivers, fast drivers. Slater needs no introduction. Italian F4 champion, of course, last season. Has picked up multiple different titles over the course of time, and after a stellar karting career, of course, has broken every record in the book in Italian F4. But let's head back down to the grid with Laura.
Fastest in the collective testing and pole position for the second time this season. So how do you feel about the race?
Yeah, I feel quite confident. We've had good pace this whole weekend. So there was some rain earlier, so let's see. Hopefully no rain in the race, but yeah, just get a good start and then do our own race.
Thank you.
Big thank you to Laura again, and great to hear from Enzo Delaney as always. Got talking to him earlier on, and he actually did mention that if it was going to rain during the race, it's going to be somewhat of a trip to the casino in terms of it being probably luck will prevail on the day, but it doesn't look like we're going to be faced with anything of the sort as we now take a look at the starting grid ahead of our race here at Imola. It's Enzo Delaney starting on pole position ahead of Freddie Slater. What a type that will be into Tamburello. Akshay Bora in third with Pedro Clearo, the Brazilian, in fourth place on the second row. We can then head further down into P5. We'll then meet our another championship contender, Matteo De Palo, looking to win in a home weekend for Trident, with Evan Chilter alongside him in sixth place. Jin Nakamura in seventh, alongside Taito Kato for ART in eighth. We then move further down as well to ninth position on the grid. That's when we reach Hiyu Yamakoshi, the Japanese talent for Van Amersfoort, alongside Sandstock's very own Nikita Bedrin. And Dion Gouda lines up as well, the top rookie in the championship, alongside Prema's very own Rashid Al-Dahiri, who'll be looking for a big start. Of course, got plenty of places to make up through the course of this race. Michael Belov, a driver that has made an appearance in every single season since 2021, alongside Ian Eichmans for RPM. Ruiki Lu for Trident, alongside Kanato Lei at ART. And that'll round off the eighth row of the grid for this particular race. We'll move down to P17, where Jack Beaton, looking to find something, is the young man from the Gold Coast. It's been a tough weekend so far. Zachary David looking to lift the spirits of CL Motorsport, also in their home race weekend this time around, with Enzo Yeh down in 19th place, ahead of Edu Robinson, who lines up in 20th spot. In 21st is Tim Gerhardt, fresh back from injury, of course, the wrist injury sustained by cycling. Nandavad Biram Bhakti in the Tridents alongside him in 22nd. We see Sakir Al-Maushari for Axel GP in 23rd, and the returning Kasper Stuka, who lines up for G4 in 24th. Aditya Kulkarni also from Axel down in 25th. Yaroslav Vasalo for Santaloc down in 26th place. Javier Segrera in 27th for Axel as well, making up that trio, with Eduard Borgner down in 28th place for G4 Racing. We'll then take a look to the back of the grid, and it's Giovanni Maschio, home race weekend. Of course, we caught up with him. He gave us a guide through the Imola circuit, and he'll be hoping that he can guide himself off the back and further up inside this 29-car classification that we do certainly have. And it's going to be a fantastic race for sure. The final moments now ticking down before we get running here in this race. Of course, now the grid being cleared, the formation lap will then take front and centre. At the head of the order, though, it is Enzo Delaney, who'll be hoping for a big start to this race on the run down towards Tamburello. And like Freddie Slater said in our post-qualifying interview that we had with him, of course, it is a long run down through towards turn one where anything can truly happen. And of course, it would be rude not to talk about the big news leading into the weekend as well. On Thursday, many of you might have seen as Slater leaves the line and actually moves ahead of Delaney straight away. So whether that's a message that he's trying to send right from the go, knows that he has to give the place back to Enzo Delaney under the formation lap. But on Thursday, that being the 31st of July, some big news dropped, everybody. All new championships set to commence as of next season, developed in collaboration with Achi Sport and of course the FIA, and it is set to launch in 2026. The FIA will be assuming the roles around sporting, technical and safety activities, and they'll also support the Achi Sports organisation in terms of the overall strategy of the championship as well. Positioned in a key step as well, so it will truly make the Formula Regional European Championship a solidified place in between the Formula 4 and FIA Formula 3 championships, just helping the young talent blossom and grow into becoming stars of the future. And we will, of course, have a new car as well. All will be revealed in that department in the not too distant future, but the name of that car will be the FR Gen 2, also known as the Formula Regional Gen 2. And the new name of the championship, of course, FIA Formula Regional European Championship. And look at the weather. To take us through the rest of the day, we've got 26 degrees in the air right now, 42 degrees in terms of track temperature. Not a lot has changed since we last checked earlier on today, but the humidity has taken a nice sensible position, 61% in terms of humidity at the moment. With the rainfall just coming down, it's allowed the air to thicken up just a little bit, which will of course make things perhaps a little trickier for drivers to follow with, but we'll wait and see as to whether they can find something as they bring the formation up to a close. There's the Trident team hoping for a big weekend on home soil, much like Prema. Plenty of Italian teams in this championship looking to strike a big result. And Trident on home turf back at Misano to open up the season. If we take a short look back at what happened in race one, it would be Matteo De Paolo, also on home soil for him, taking not only his first win in Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, but Trident's very first themselves. And what a moment it certainly was. And it's been a landmark year for them, because Rafael Camara, also champion, reigning champion of Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, could be on the cards to win the F3 crown, the FIA Formula 3 crown this weekend in Budapest. And he'll be hoping to do that, that's for sure. And that will be under the Trident banner as well, who've certainly risen to become the mainstays, or should we say the focal point of the Formula 3 Championship as one of its top teams. And now starting to produce some top-end results this time as well, but certainly Matteo De Paolo flying the flag for them this season. He, of course, has nestled 2 wins so far this campaign and 6 podiums, but currently sits 20 points behind Freddie Slater, who is on win number 5 at the moment with 7 podiums, and joins the club of Alessandro Giusti, Martini Estension, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, and Hadrian David, who is actually here this weekend. Hadrian David, he's actually supporting Enzo Dellini and offering some spirited advice and coaching as well. The current leading race wins, allocation goes to Rafael Camara. He's the all-time leading driver in terms of number of wins in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, and his legacy still burning strong at the moment, as now the cars line up onto the grid. Enzo Dellini on your right in the R-Race GP car, alongside him to the left, Freddie Slater in the mean red, number 27 for Prema. In behind, plenty of other contenders, though, looking to move themselves up. It was an impressive session for Akshay Bora, who was very much in the firing line, looking to try and take pole position himself, but eventually it would be his own teammates. Enzo Dellini, as now Jack Beaton lines up on the grid as well, looking for a big raise in his fortunes. It has been a tough start to the season for the young man from the Gold Coast, as we now await for the lights to go red and later go out to commence the start of what will be a feast of motorsport here this weekend in Imola, and indeed in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. CL Motorsport in their home weekend as well will be hoping for a big weekend from Zachary David, and of course Michael Belov, ever so experienced, as now the marshal waves the green flag behind the scenes. And in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, it's pedal to the metal here at Imola. We go racing, a slow start for Freddie Slater, a great start for Enzo Dellini. Then this is allowed the others to pounce further back. The 22 that sits in behind, Pedro Clero immediately now into second. Slater, with such a poor start now, he's managed to save it to some degree, moved into third, and in behind he has got Akshay Bora for company as well. Some side-by-side action elsewhere between the R-Race GP drivers further back, and also an RPM, as well as they fly through the Villeneuve chicane. And next up, a trip in towards Tosa. But still, so far, Dellini, great start. Clero pouncing on the opportunity to make the move past Freddie Slater side by side further back, as we see the ART of Evan Gilter trying to raise the stakes, as well as Rashid Al-Dahiri, who's also looking to gain places on the back of Dion Gowder as they now head uphill and in towards the Piratella. Now it's Jin Nakamura under fire. Still can't separate himself too much from Evan Gilter, but it looks like they've settled down. The 2 CL Motorsport cars also going wheel to wheel on the run down through towards Aqua Minerale. Side by sides as well elsewhere. Ian Eichmann's looking to try and make places as well. He's currently in the midst of a fight with Michael Belov, and Zachary David also looking to gain as well. But so far, at the head of the order, Enzo Dellini, untapped at the top, but now Pedro Clero looking to take what could be his 3rd victory of the season as well. Remember that blanket weekend they had back at Zandvoort in a home race for Van Amersfoort is a little bit wide of the mark there was Jaroslav Vasalo, which could yet crunch some of his momentum coming out of Variante Alta. We did see a little bit of a mishap as well for another car as well that's certainly rode through the course a little bit hard, probably harder than he would have probably anticipated for us. Now we watch them take the next lap. Lap 2 underway now, 28 minutes plus remaining, plus the extra lap that they must take as well. But it is still Enzo Dellini out in front by just over 4.5 tenths of a second. Further back, Pedro Clero. He's just nestled in second comfortably as well as wheel to wheel now between the two ARTs. Coming together, Taito Carter around the outside and past Evan Gilteri will go into 7th place. But they're going to come back together. Wheel to wheel as well. It looks like now this time Gilter's coming under fire from Hiyu Yamakoshi, who's all over the back of Carter as well. And Gilter losing 2 places in the first sector alone. Here on the second lap of action, that's not ideal at all. He's going to go late on the brakes again, looking around the outside, but that opens the door now for Nikita Bedrin, who's also trying to up the ante on his side for Santalok Racing. The highest of the Santalok so far as well. Of course, Mathieu De Paulo's former team, by the way, from last season. Oh, my goodness, and that is a car off. Oh, went straight into the barrier. That is the Van Amersfoort car of Hiyu Yamakoshi. After overtaking Evan Gilteri, yellow flag, no question, after the entrance into the barriers at Piratella. A very fast corner. Out on so we've had another mishap, and that's the CL Motorsport car as well. That's the number 9, if I'm not mistaken, of Zachary David, the winner of the Pirelli Rising Car Award, back at Paul Ricard. And he won't be rising this time in the front wing on Jack Beaton's car. Looks like it's been stripped off as well. So that's the, by and large, I think the moments that occurred there. Unfortunately, Jack Beaton losing the front wing and again adding to the string of bad luck he has had this season. But still at the moment under yellow flag, double wave yellows at turns 9 and turns 12. There is the number 9 belonging to Zachary David. As now they take the next lap, Enzo Dellini still on top, and Evan Gilter coming into the pits as well, folks. Obviously, we saw him lose a fleet of places, so whether he's having some further issues, I'm not sure. Jack Beaton also joining him in there as well for no doubt a front wing change. And a safety car has been deployed with 26 minutes to go. Enzo Dellini out in front will settle down to a steady pace. He'll bring it to Delta, and there is the inspection. And it looks like a loose front nose cone there for Evan Gilter, so probably causing largely some... Either it's loose or they're trying to remove it. Maybe there's some other damage that he unfortunately experienced. Let's take a look and see what happened. Ah, this would be the contact. So obviously the front wing making contact with Yamakoshi, essentially taking Yamakoshi into the gravel trap and into the barrier at Piratella. This was the moment for Zachary David and meeting Jack Beaton. And largely the spin had happened before the contact there for Zachary David, and I think Jack Beaton was just unfortunate that the incident had happened in front of him, really had nowhere else to go. It's a very narrow line you take coming up through Acqua Minerale, because of course you need to go as wide as you can on entry through the second half of the sequence of corners you take after going downhill and then straight back up again. So again, more misfortune plaguing the young man from Australia. It's been the story of his season, really, unfortunately for young Jack Beaton. We look back to Hungary, where of course, he got tied up with the Santalok of Nikita Bedrin coming through turn 1. And then later, of course, he had the fire with the car that ended his race. But back again. And the one great thing you can say about Jack Beaton as a young man, he is as positive as they come. Always a smile on the young man's face. And a great talent on his day behind the wheel of a car as well. And all it takes sometimes is one decent result to turn your season around, and certainly if you're the likes of Enzo Dellini, you'll know all about that. Of course, had a baptism of fire of his own last season in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. Eventually the form came in, and now we're seeing the results today. Of course, taking pole position once again for the second time this season, and on top of that, looking to gather yet another victory. Of course, only one against his belt at the moment. Of course, the last win for Enzo Dellini was back at Spa-Francorchamps, and in what was a double podium weekend for Enzo Dellini. You'd love one here at Imola as well, and who'd bet against him really after the lap he pulled off in yesterday's qualifying session. The middle sector was truly astonishing. 2.5 tenths gained in the middle sector alone on that last gasp clutch lap from Dellini, and very much throwing himself straight into the equation for race wins this weekend. And to topple Freddie Slater is not easy. And I tell you what, opportunities here for Matteo De Paolo as well. With Slater not getting such a great start, it means he will sacrifice more points in this opening race and could potentially help Matteo De Paolo going forward for the rest of the weekend. This is the moment again. That's Gilter making contact with Hiyu Yamakoshi as the Japanese driver unfortunately went careering into the barrier. Not a nice way to end your first day, certainly of the weekend. I can tell you a red flag has been issued as well. So the drivers will have to return to the pit lane. And there's the moment for Zachary David, who basically spun and then into the path of Jack Beaton, who then lost his front wing as a consequence. So with the red flag out, obviously allows the stewards and also the crew around the circuit, the marshals, to repair the barrier. But fastest lap, currently in the pocket of Enzo Dellini. That was done on lap 2. So we still have 23 minutes left of racing, plus the 1 lap, of course. Then we'll be back underway shortly to finish the rest of that. But as they come down through towards Aqua Minerale, you can just see there just a little bit of tyre warming for Pedro Clero. Really good start for him as well in this race. Obviously, mentioned the Zandvoort blanket that Van Amersfoort managed to produce. It was a fantastic weekend. I say it was a blanket of wins. Obviously, Slater did get the win in the opening round, but it was I do apologise, it was a P2 for Clero in that first race of the weekend. But it was, of course, Pedro Clero's first win this season in race 2. And therefore, it gave the Van Amersfoort team something to really shout and cheer about. They've been knocking on the door. Obviously, we've seen the likes of Brando Badour coming in over the course of time as well. And, he's, gone and since, driven in the FIA Formula 3 Championship, of course, this season. Of course, previously, Kaz Havercourt, a name that many of you will remember, a former driver for the Van Amersfoort team, now, of course, taking to Porsche Super Cup. And Kaz Havercourt, in his time in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, producing 4 wins and 10 podiums in his history. And currently the highest scoring driver in the history of Van Amersfoort Racing in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. But I'm sure if you're Pedro Clero, you'll be looking to add to the wins tally. Of course, remember, Havercourt part of the championship for quite a number of years. And really, I must say, took the fight to the likes of Dino Beganovic. In the history, of course, Beganovic went on to win the title in his own right back in 2022, representing the Prema team, and has since now found himself in FIA Formula 2. Of course, it was 5th place in the championship for Kaz Havercourt that campaign, just behind Hadrian David, who I mentioned is here this weekend. If you're curious as to who is the second highest in terms of wins tally, Paul Aaron is there alongside Gregoire Saucy as well, but Paul Aaron just outweighing him in terms of number of podiums, in terms of 15 that he's managed to gather, as we now watch as the cars make their way into the pit lane under red flag conditions. But Imola always attracting that little bit of added spice, that little added bit of Italian flavour here in the motorsport calendar, and has done so ever since April 25th, 1953. Over 72 years now, this track has been producing motorsport globally. And this canvas has been met by many a top driver in its time. Of course, during the Acci weekend so far, we do see the Italian GT taken to the circuit. Of course, TCR Italy as well, and the Italian F4 Championship that, of course, many of these drivers have risen from, including last season's champion, Rafael Camara, and the champion prior to him, Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Of course, once teammates here in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. Who can forget their massive duel that they had back at Monza, at the Temple of Speed, where Camara did get one up on his own teammate that weekend. But Camara very much in line for the FIA Formula 3 title. Of course, many of these drivers here will be looking to jump up into that series, much like, of course, well, no question, we will very likely see the likes of Freddie Slater and Matteo De Paolo. Of course, a good ending to your run in the championship will help in terms of your future plans in your career going forward. And certainly the future plans involving Formula Regional as a series, certainly here in Europe, is in for a rampant rise, that's for sure. Well positioned to help produce further young talents for the future. And in this race at the moment, Delaney's the man to catch. The young man who joined the championship last year, if you remember, was a Red Bull Academy driver last season as well. Now since independent, but the results have certainly taken a massive upward stride. If we take a look at last season, of course, Enzo Delaney managing to muster a 12-point finish back at Hockenheim last season. Did actually manage to attract some big points, finishing with 240, well, finishing with 61, only 248 off Rafael Camara's points total at the end of the 2024 campaign. But if you want to take a look at the numbers now, well, already he's in the 90s, 97, 3 away from a century. So has already well and truly surpassed his points tally from last campaign. And no question, looking for more. Is very close to Pedro Clearo at the moment in terms of the points. And at the moment, only 9 between them. But crucially enough for Delaney, Pedro Clearo sat behind him in terms of what's going on track at the moment. So this could very much be a battle that could determine who will be taking P3 in the championship come the end of play today when the checkered flag rolls out. Of course, for first place, remember, we do follow the typical Formula One point system with 25 points going to the winner, 18 points going to second place, which means if it finishes like this, it'll be 7 points in the favour of Enzo Delaney against Pedro Clearo, bringing the gap down some margin. As I said, like 9 points between them prior to this race, leaving just 2 between them. Should it stay like this when the checkered flag comes out? As you can see, the cars currently sat in the pits, just waiting for further instructions. I can tell you that the incident between cars 20 and cars 9 has been noted by race control. So stay tuned to the socials for any updates that may concern the incident, and certainly if any penalties are going to be issued. But at the moment, it's all quiet on track at the moment, but soon they will roar back into action, that's for sure. And just see the marshals there, just on side, just offering that little bit of assistance. The team's hard at work and conversing with their drivers as well. Of course, you can imagine Freddie Slater somewhat kicking himself. This would have been a great opportunity to increase the points gap on Matteo De Paolo, with De Paolo currently sat 5th in the classification right now. And maybe an opportunity here for De Paolo to, you'll have to get past, obviously, Akshay Bora. Next on his list then would be Freddie Slater. Now, whether he wants to, or whether he can, bring himself closer to the back of his title rival, we will have to wait and see. But with the one car being sat between them, it does complicate matters a little bit. And certainly Akshay Bora, who has proven he can too nestle in podium finishes, did so back at Zandvoort in race 1. And Paul Ricard last time out in race 2 as well. Generally performed where Enzo Delaney didn't last time. Of course, Delaney did manage to muster in points finishes in both races, but it was 6 in the first race and only 1 in the next, leaving him slightly on the back foot heading into Imola. But we are now into the second half of the season proper, with, after Imola, Red Bull Ring coming next, and we come back from the summer break in September, and then a trip to Barcelona not long after that, with then the last 2 rounds being Hockenheim and Monza, the Temple of Speed, obviously, to bring a close to this season's championship. Race will resume at just under 20 past 5. So at the moment, we're looking at 7 minutes in the pits at the moment under red flag conditions. But we will still have the 23 minutes and 5 plus 1 lap to bring you before the very end. Incidentally, obviously, we alluded to the fact that it is the second pole position achieved by Enzo Delaney himself. He'll join the likes of Alessandro Giusti now, who also took 2 during his time here in the championship. Michael Belov also taking 2 as well in prior times he has raced in the series. Gabriel Bortoleto as well, so that's good company for him as well. Obviously, Bortoleto now since moving on. Of course, it's been a long time since we had him in the championship. I mean, 2022 only feels like yesterday, where, of course, he was fighting with the likes of Gabriel Limini and also Dina Beganovic and Hadrian David as well. Of course, now racing for the Kick-Sauber team in Formula One. And it's been a good time for the Brazilian talent in the single-seater world in motorsports as of late, certainly at the very top. Speaking of Hadrian David, there he is, just walking right in front of shot, actually. Just, of course, looking after Enzo Dellini's affairs at the moment as the 5-minute board is now waved to the drivers. So in about 5 minutes' time, we will be back underway, everybody. Like I said, Hadrian David has been alongside Enzo Dellini, guiding him this season. And no question, his experience has been absolutely vital. A thumbs up there to Enzo. So far, so good, as far as Hadrian David's concerned. And I'm sure that team boss Thibaut is going to be absolutely thrilled with this performance so far from the RSGP team, who, like I said at the top of the show, Martin Stenshorn, names that have come before, obviously a former winner at this track. And incidentally, after Martin Stenshorn and neither prior, we have not had an RSGP winner aside from Martin Stenshorn. He was the first RSGP driver to do so, and currently the only one. If Enzo Dellini wins this, of course, he'll become the only the second driver for RSGP to win here at Imola. Of course, it's largely been a Prema race weekend, and Prema have never actually won in race 2 in Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine here at Imola. Generally, all their results have been in race 1, with them taking victories back in 2021 with David Vidales, Dino Beganovic in 2022, and Rafael Camara last season. Of course, it was Martini Stenshorn that essentially broke the link in the chain. For ART, they've largely had success here too, and all their success has been in race 2 as well, in direct contrast to the Prema team. Gregoire Saucy all the way back in 2021, that eventual champion that season, with Gabriele Mini then following suit afterwards. Meaning 2 wins in 4 races at Imola for ART. And then, of course, Kaz Havercourt broke that chain then for Van Amersfoort Racing before Alessandro Giusti managed to lodge in his victory, making it 3 wins for ART here at Imola in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. Just 2 minutes now, or 3 minutes away now, I should say, before we get back underway. Won't be long before we hear the engines roar once more. But very much the same as RSGP, Van Amersfoort, with Pedro Claro currently sat in second. They could be on for their second win here at Imola in the series. So, yeah, quite a race of significance for those 2 teams. If we look at the former records, of course, Dellini, like he said in the grid interview with Laura, fastest in qualifying and has been fast all weekend. We allude back to collective test 1, where he managed to lodge the fastest time in collective testing with a 1:39.044, and that was just under 0.4 of a second faster than Nikita Bedrin and Sansalot Racing in second. Akshay Bora, who of course was causing Dellini a little bit of trouble in Group B's qualifying session earlier on this morning. Well, he was 3rd fastest in that CT1 session, but over 0.4 of a second off his teammate Dellini. And Dellini did go 3rd fastest in collective test 2 behind Matteo De Paolo and Freddie Slater, the 2 championship contenders at the moment at the top of the championship. But we've got 2 very different fights operating inside the top 5 at the moment. Obviously, the championship lead battle between De Paolo and Slater. Slater obviously being 3rd, De Paolo 5th in this classification, and Dellini and Claro fighting over 3rd place in the championship as of now. But they will remain as they are in the championship should they finish like this, with 2 points between them if they take the checkered flag right now, the result standing as it is. But obviously we won't have that. It's 23 minutes remaining. You can add 5 seconds on that plus another lap as the 1-minute board gets raised and the car starts to fire up, ready for the restart. The yellow flag being waved as the safety car will get waved back up as well, and then soon we'll get back underway in full green race conditions. But if you're just joining us, obviously we've lost Hiyu Yamakoshi earlier on in the race after a collision with Evan Gilter, who ultimately ended up coming into the pits to have his front wing inspected. And Jack Beaton had to do the same as well, but obviously his incident, not necessarily causing the spin for Zachary David. Looked like Zachary David had spun by himself coming out of Acqua Minerale and right into the path of Jack Beaton, who then had to come in for a wing change himself after it broke on the front of the Prema car. So it's now time for the cars to head back out onto the circuit. Delaney will now take the circuit again with Pedro Clero following him out. Freddie Slater down in third place, be hoping for a decent restart in comparison to the start that he had for this particular race. A very rare Freddie Slater mistake, that as well. And it is so rare, just based on his very nature and, of course, the reputation that precedes him. And not only that, the stats that have followed him for this season alone as well. And we're only just into the second half of the championship with 5 wins against Slater's name and 7 podiums as well to add to that number as well. But we've also have a flurry of drivers that all share 1 win apiece as well. Pedro Clero being one of those drivers along with Enzo Delaney. Evan Gilter also with 1 win, but it's not going to happen for Gilter this time after coming into the pits. He's got a huge mountain to climb. And dare I say, I don't think 22 minutes is going to necessarily help him, especially under the safety car. But the timer has restarted, folks. And we've now entered onto lap 5 right now, as well as now they come through the Villeneuve chicane, the Alpine safety car now heads through Tosa. They'll then head uphill, the uphill incline leading through towards the Piratella as well. But conforming to Delta under the yellow flags at this stage. I was alluding to the Brazilian success currently coming through around the realms of single-seater racing at the moment. Obviously, we alluded to Gabriel Bortoleto, Rafael Camara, but obviously Pedro Clero as well. Very much part of that. Obviously, currently sat second at the moment, and you never know, could be on for a second win in his own right as we lead to his battle with Delaney, not just in the championship, but also here and now. And obviously, much like Camara, trying to follow in his footsteps. Currently third in the championship, Pedro Clero, and of course, in total, 3 podiums have been listed against his name, and we obviously spoke about Zandvoort being a massive weekend for him, but also Hungaroring in the first race where he managed to capture second place just behind Matteo De Parlo, who registered his 2nd win of the season in that particular one. Of course, Matteo De Parlo with 6 podiums against his name, as well as they now come through Variante Alta. Further back, Jin Nakamura also sat ahead of Taito Kato, who we also caught up with over the weekend. And we spoke with him about the prior ART performances around this circuit from the likes of Gregoire Saucy and Gabriele Mini, pulling off some great results, as did Alessandro Giusti. Of course, Taito Kato, a very determined young man, and was largely in the heat of battle with his own teammate Evan Gilter at the start of this race. And then we saw the introduction of Hiyu Yamakoshi, who was looking to take full advantage and eventually did. Unfortunate for Gilter, really. He lost a couple of places, and then it very much culminated in the incident then between himself and Yamakoshi out of Piratella. As the yellow flags continue to be waved around the circuit, the drivers just trying to get the temperature up into the tyres, and the track temperature has largely fallen as well. 39.2 degrees, the air temperature settling in at 26, almost similar to what we saw from qualifying earlier on this morning. So that's how conditions are currently met at the moment. As they come down through towards Tamburello, it's the number 55. Dion Gouda further back, the leading rookie in the championship, the young Brit, who is very much enjoying his first season in the Formula Regional European Championship Alpine, and I think could be a major threat, of course, returning next season if he does, of course. If we hear that announcement, keep your eyes on that young man. I think he'll definitely have a promising run next campaign. Only 17 years of age, British Indian, and began his motorsport age 9 in Singapore, as well as we get confirmation from race control that the safety car will be in this lap. so we can get back to high-speed action. But yeah, Stian Gauda with a great opportunity to rise himself through the ranks. Already a race winner in British F4 with Rodin Carlin. And of course took part in Italian F4 last season with Prema, with 2 podiums there, also taking part in Euro 4, but taking the step up now to Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine this campaign with Van Amersfoort Racing. Just looking to build on these early foundations and already capturing some fantastic points finishes as well. But let's wait and see whether he can deliver the goods this time. Currently sat in the points at the moment, 9th place just behind Nikita Bedrin. And still leading rookie here and now, Ian Eichmans, who of course joined the championship back at Hungary. Currently sat P2 in the rookies and P12 overall. And really impressed on his opening weekend back at Budapest. But remember, of course, that earlier test session was done on the new tyres that were given to him, because of course it was his first weekend in Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. But still, you've got to be able to put the car there in the first place. As they now descend downhill towards the Ravazza section. And coming out of the final corner in turn 19, we now see Enzo Dellini put pedal to the metal for the second time in this race now. And they get back underway, 16 minutes and 46 to go, plus the 1 lap. It is going to be Enzo Dellini taking them down through towards Tamburello. Further back, Pedro Clero is being moved up upon now by Freddie Slater, who has a little look to his inside, coming through towards turn 2. Not quite on the cards now is the number 10 of Nikita Bedrin. Now making his way through the first sector as well. Lap 1 incident between cars 45. That is, of course, Jack Beaton's car. Obviously alluding to the incident involving the number 5 from earlier on, that being Ruiki Liu. So that's a separate one. And that incident will be noted by race control. So we'll hear from that later on. The stewards will be taking a look at that one prior, or after, I should say, the checkered flag comes out, as they now come uphill and through towards Piratella out of Tosa. It is Dellini in charge, with Pedro Clero locked in behind. The Brazilian chasing a second race win, much like Dellini is too. Further back, Ian Eichmans, with Kanato Lay not too far behind either as they now cruise down through Aqua Minerale. There is Rashid Al Dahiri in the familiar Yassit-coloured Prema car, now ascending uphill. Of course, it was a tricky session for Rashid Al Dahiri. Was largely fighting up at the top end as well, with, of course, eventual pole sitter, or should we say front row sitter, Freddie Slater, but wasn't quite able to stick his Prema on top ahead of Slater this time, and actually had to drop a few places as well for the start of the race. Now we watch them come down through Ravazza once again, through the first corner of Ravazza, then the second. There in the number 19 is Kanato Lay. Just trying to keep Michael Belov in behind, who's so vastly experienced in this championship. As now the Italian Matteo De Paolo looks to put his head down, try and keep back the 11 of Jin Nakamura, who's getting closer and closer with the power of the slipstream. And De Paolo slightly disconnected from the others. Pedro Clero going defensive, obviously just very wary of Slater. Slater almost moving right at the same moment as Clero did, and that's allowed a little bit more space now for Enzo Dellini up at the front, which I'm sure he'll take with both hands as they cruise down through towards Villeneuve once again. A little gap starting to now grow between Akshay Bora and Matteo De Paolo, which may become inviting, as now at the inside comes the 19 of Kanato Lay. Looked like we were going to see Michael Belov move up then for a brief moment, but not quite. Just going slightly defensive on the run out of Villeneuve through towards Tosa, as many have done so far this race, as they now cruise through Piratella. The gap starting to normalise a little bit now, 4/10 between our front two at the moment. Credit to Kasper Stuka on his return as well to the championship. Hasn't been seen in a little while, but 7 places up from where he started. Well, started 24th on the grid, and has now found himself up into 17th place. So well done, Kasper Stuka, as Evan Gilter now moves up into 24th, just behind Jaroslav Vasalo. So he's got past Sakir Al-Maushari. Jack Beaton still down, but ahead of Edouard Borgner now. So there has been place gains from the 2 drivers that had to come in for front wing inspections after their separate incidents that eventually saw the safety car come out. And then later the red flag as well, as now we see Freddie Slater once again all over the back of Pedro Clero. And Slater, a young man determined, nestled in the first 138 we saw in Group B in qualifying and held it solely for a long period of time as they come down towards Tamburello. Again, defensive from Clero. There was an outside look there from the young Brit, Freddie Slater, determined now to push this championship lead as much as he can. He is still ahead of Mattia De Paolo, which is what matters at this point. Of course, Mattia De Paolo will not be bringing that gap down by any means, but if anything, Clero will be bringing the gap down to the championship leader, and so will Enzo Dellini, who now takes the fastest lap of the race, registering a 1:40.758. Warning has been issued as well to the number 27 of Freddie Slater, so a black and white flag flown for Freddie. Can't afford to pick too many of those up. And the young man chasing a better podium position than P3 at the moment. Ideally, wants to continue his race-winning run and make it win number 4, but that could be very difficult with Clero mastermind in the defense against him. Of course, he did say, Freddie Slater, as many know, it's a long run down through towards turn 1 as they now creep and peep, coming out of Variante Alta. And now descend downhill through towards Ravazza once again. 12 minutes to go, plus the 1 lap. Dellini building the gap now to 8.5 tenths between himself and Pedro Clero. Slater now becomes the main danger, but Slater now 9 tenths back on Dellini. But still, crucially, hot on the heels of the Van Amersfoort car. And of course, remember, they do have the utilization of push to pass as well, just to give them that extra boost that they may need heading down a long straight. Mainly using outside of the corners to ensure they get a decent run down the next chicane. That, of course, being Tamburello, as now we clock the speeds of the cars coming through the speed trap. All of them going immensely fast. As we saw that Pedro Clero was clocking out at approximately 176 kilometers per hour that led to the fastest lap before. So now cruise uphill through towards Tosa. A slight lock up there for Pedro Clero, with Piratella next on the menu. Dellini now very nearly breaching a second. Still 8.5 tenths between himself and Clero at the moment, but it only shows signs of growing at the moment. A really cool, calm, confident performance here so far from Dellini. Pedro Clero did snatch the fastest lap of the race last time out, though, away from Dellini, so determined as ever to bring that gap down, but it has encroached over a second now coming out of Acqua Minerale. So Dellini on this lap doing the business, and I'm sure this will put a smile on Hadrian David's face as well, as we get confirmation of that fastest lap from Pedro Clero as they now descend downhill and will tackle turn 18 and 19 once again. Dellini, the gap breaking down to 9 tenths all of a sudden. Clero determined not to lose out if he can help it. Still a long way to go, 10 minutes. What can happen in a race in that space and time? They now come down through towards turn 2 and turn 3. It's half a second between Slater and Clero at the moment. It's now come down to 3 tenths of a second. A little bit of a gap brewing as well between Kanato Lay and Ian Eichmans as well. That stretched to 1.1 seconds. That'll put Kanato Lay largely on the back foot because he's not going to have the benefit of slipstream, and therefore have himself served up on a plate for Michael Belov later on. The longest serving driver in Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, as the fastest lap is now traded off. Another lock-up at Tosa for Pedro Clero. Perhaps a slight chink in the armour here, and Freddie Slater will know that. And his confidence will only get higher and higher the more he sees it, as they now look to descend downhill again in towards Acqua Minerale. Actually, Bora still not too far away either, can just sort of go sensible on his tyres and pick his point. Went to attack potentially Freddie Slater. De Paolo, who has not moved a muscle since the start of the race, remaining in P5, and will need a little bit of luck to go his way as well. We did hear from Enzo Dellini about how difficult it is to overtake around this circuit, much to his delight, and he did say that he was hoping for a dry race, which is what he's largely been given here at this point. Just helps that consistency, of course, as we know. And, they call rain the grand equalizer. So no matter where you started on the grid, really, everyone's always vulnerable to being overtaken. So they fly once more onto the next lap of asking. Lap 12. 12 laps now in. 8 minutes and 15 still to go. Delaney now 1.2 seconds to the good, and Akshay Bora getting closer to the back of Freddie Slater as well. The young man from New York City, USA, 18 years of age coming into this season's campaign, and was a German junior karting champion back in 2021 as well. But Freddie Slater also winning everything there is to win. As again, we hear another tyre school and more lockups around Tosa. Certainly some of the drivers feeling the pinch around this portion of circuit. It certainly won't do that Pirelli tyre any good at all. And again, more hopes here for Slater as now a black and white flag gets posted for Enzo Yeh. The RPM team currently down in 14th at the moment behind Michael Belov. So they now descend through Acqua Minerale again and turn uphill. Just over 7 minutes and 20 to go. The timer ticking down and the opportunities are running few and far for the rest of them inside this top three classification as Enzo Delaney posts yet another fastest lap of the race, a 1:39.945. So now we're breaking into the 1:39s. The Delaney keen to take this straight to the checkered flag here and now and break away. And he'll be hoping in some way that perhaps Pedro Clero loses perhaps a couple of places that could yet see Delaney move up to third in the championship. At the moment, that shows no signs of changing. A look in the mirrors here for Dion Gouda. Knows that Rashid Al-Dahiri is all over his tail. Al-Dahiri, incidentally, on a voyage, on a journey, looking to try and find his way higher up inside the top 10 and could yet do that here and now as he looks to try and take on Dion Gouda, who goes very defensive. A look to the inside as well. Gouda had his number. Freddie Slater now taking the fastest lap. Here this time with a 1:39.868. It's heating up. It's Slater all over the tail of Pedro Clero coming through the Villeneuve chicane. This battle ongoing now over P2 position with Akshay Bora now separating himself slightly away from the back of Freddie Slater as these two now start to resume their P2 scrap. Just look at the comparisons based on the last lap as well. 2 laps prior to lap 12, it was all Akshay Bora. 45 thousandths on lap 10, just over or just under a tenth and a quarter in lap 11, but a crunching 4 tenths gained by Freddie Slater in 1 lap alone on lap 12. And he is absolutely determined to pull off something miraculous here in the closing stages, but Clero is very experienced where it comes to defending. Has already had to do so once before and twice before against Freddie Slater, who has already sent the warning shots in against the young Brazilian as they now descend downhill once again. Of course, Clero taking the focal role as a team leader at Van Amersfoort, largely was, of course, part of the lineup that consisted of Brando Bador last campaign. Was trying to grow from that initial experience, and now Slater all over the back of Pedro Clero, who has no slipstream on the back of Enzo Delaney. They race down through towards Tamburello, and this could be Slater's chance, hovering all over the rear. Now looking to the outside, it's wheel to wheel on the run down now in towards turn 2. Clero has no answer. Slater goes aggressive and around the outside, coming into the inside out of turn 2 and turn 3 at Tamburello. Clero takes a tumble and is now into third with Akshay Bora. Now also looking to take full advantage. Villeneuve chicane up next as they now cruise through, and it's up the inside. Here and now from Akshay Bora, dared to dream, making his way through that second chicane, but ultimately not successful. He might be this time though, as now defensive goes Clero and had to go on heavy on the brakes now coming into this section. We've got Rashid Al-Dahiri off. Oh no. Rashid Al-Dahiri, part of Prema, as now side by side they go again. Clero trying to defend, but he has the wrong line really now, this time for Piratella, and it'll be Akshay Bora making it our race GP 1 and 3, and definitely the place gain that Enzo Delaney would have been yearning for as Jin Nakamura takes the fastest lap, and the safety car comes out here on lap 14, and a shake of the head from Rashid Al-Dahiri. That's his day done. The marshals now tend to the car. Let's take a look at what happened. A collision with the 74 of Ian Eichmann's. It would seem, just overcommitting. And if anything, just guided Rashid Al-Dahiri onto the gravel. The damage was done ultimately at the very end of that car moving. It hit the barrier. That's what really did the number on the Prema car. So that's two Prema drivers now involved in separate incidents. Obviously, Jack Beaton being the first, and Rashid Al-Dahiri here and now with 3 minutes and 20 to go. And this looks like it could yet finish under the safety car, but we'll wait and see, obviously, folks, what race control determine. But we'll take a look at this now. And obviously, Pedro Clero, who had the walls of defence up for such a long time through the course of this race, had managed to deflect two separate moments alone prior, where he kept Freddie Slater behind. But that was all undone over the last lap as Slater cruised through, and I must say, majestically. Plenty of respect given between the two drivers. There was plenty of circuit there for them both to play with. But Slater was just looking to confirm the P2, and he certainly did that. Great effort as well from Pedro Clero, who was ultimately usurped by Akshay Bora on the run-up out of Tosa and in towards the Piratella, and definitely all smiles down at RACE GP, that's for sure. But they said it was hard to overtake here at Imola. It certainly is, but you can pick your moments. And Slater, as we said, after speaking to him, he said it was a long run down through towards the first corner, and it certainly is that. But Slater proved that it is certainly long enough to allow him to move through into the mainstay podium places. Holding on to second now, a lot better than the way it was before, and we will go back to racing. Safety car in this lap, so it's not over just yet. Here's what led to that safety car. Rashid Al-Dahiri meeting Ian Eichmans. Eichmans taking the wrong line, really committing too much onto the curb and then back onto the track. Meeting Rashid Al-Dahiri, eventually guiding him into the barrier. And that was the end of play for Rashid Al-Dahiri. We'll take no further part here in race one. But I'm sure they'll get to work and get the car ready for race two tomorrow afternoon. And of course, ready for qualifying first and foremost as well. Of course, we do have another session of qualifying to bring you in the morning at 10 to 10 local time. So don't miss it. Blink and you'll miss it. Certainly if we see largely the pace that we saw from Enzo Tellini earlier on this morning, and indeed that of Freddie Slater. Very little between them. There was, in fact, if you want to talk numbers, folks, very largely minimal gaps between them. Approximately 600ths of a second between the two fastest laps from the two groups. And you'd think largely that, given the nature that the rubber was laid down in that initial groups phase, that would cause, that would certainly cause the Group B to improve their speed. And indeed, that will be a component to that improvement in pace. So really, it goes without saying, it was a clinic of a performance by both Enzo Tellini and Freddie Slater this morning in qualifying. And now we get to see them go at it. We should get a lap of racing action here and now. Enzo Tellini now cruising through Ravazza and out to the final corner at turn 19. He's going to put pedal to the metal for the third time in this race now. Now, I'll be interested to see where they hit the timing line. They should hit it before the timer with 10 seconds still to go, obviously, but it does mean that we will have the one additional lap after this one as it comes to a close. And now Tellini knows that the fight is on. We got side-by-sides further back. Nikita Bedrin trying to take on Taito Kato. Coming into the Villeneuve chicane out of Tamburello very shortly. It's RACE GP, Prema and RACE. RACE chasing their second win here at Imola in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. The first one set in place by Martinius Stenshorn back in 2023. And Tellini could be only the second driver as part of their team to do the business for RACE. But surely Freddie Slater looking to continue the great form that Prema have in race ones here at Imola. Could be race win number 4. Following in the footsteps of David Vidales, Dino Beganovic and Rafael Camara as they come uphill through the realms of Aqua Minerale and now back onto their semi-straight. Dan David Birenbakti ahead of Tim Gerhardt as well. That's a place gain, P18 for the Trident driver as they fly through Variante Alta for the penultimate time. And a run down through towards the double left-handers at the Ravazza to then tee up one final lap of racing. And Slater knows he needs to get a lot closer than where he is now. Of course, there's no slipstream for Tellini. There will be some, though, for Slater, who's currently sat 3 tenths away from our race leader right now, Akshay Bora, getting slightly disconnected from the back of them here. Slater needs to unlock everything if he wants to win this race now. Has a look in the mirrors, very wary of what's going on in behind Akshay Bora. Now a little bit further back on this lap now. And indeed, it looks like Delaney's just found a little bit of pace. He's managed to grow the gap to half a second plus. Bora now half a second as well away from Slater. Clero down in fourth, now starting to become disconnected from the back of Akshay Bora as De Paolo watches it all unfold. Currently the top five unmoved from where they started now. Of course, Slater, you might remember, losing a spot right at the start of the race, not getting the cleanest of getaways off the line, which saw him sink from second to third. He was fortunate, really, that he didn't lose more than that, because he was left on a plate, really, for the likes of Mattia De Paolo and also Akshay Bora and indeed Pedro Clero, who was, of course, the driver to get past him right at the get-go when the lights went out. Heading downhill now through towards Acqua Minerale. And heading uphill again, but Enzo Delaney impervious here at Imola. No one can seem to stop him. The rampant final clutch lap in qualifying, teeing up a mouth-watering display between these front two on the grid. Slater, of course, on a voyage of recovery, managed to do so, removing Pedro Clero away from P2 that he had gained off Slater right at the start of the race. But now, as they come through the final corner, for only the second time, RHGP will become race winners at Imola, and it'll only be the second time that Delaney wins in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. Delaney victorious here in race one, here at Imola. Bora finishing in third, making it an RHGP 1 and 3. A fantastic race for them. Jin Nakamura dropping down through the order, must have had an error, because Dion Gowda now moves up into 8th. Ian Eichmann's in 9th as well. Bedrin in 7th. But that's the checkered flag out. Delaney, Slater and Bora are top 3. Clero in P4. Mattia De Paolo remains in P5. A big points haul going the way of Freddie Slater this time to grow the gap at the top of the championship. So it's now down to De Paolo to respond tomorrow, if he's looking to, once again, bring the gap a little bit closer. But Enzo Delaney, with that could very easily send him up into third in the championship. We will, of course, get confirmation later on into the weekend. Of course, everything's provisional at this stage, folks. The stewards will be hard at work, just checking over everything. Jin Nakamura, I can obviously confirm, was the fastest driver through the course of this race with a 1:39.765. The result that I'm sure Enzo Delaney cares about, and certainly bumper day for our race in that aspect, of course, with the 2 podiums and the fastest lap for Jin Nakamura, but ultimately for Nakamura, unfortunately, moved down to the very tail end of the order in accordance to my timing screen. It's not ideal at all, but fantastic race, fantastic close to the race as well. Let's run through the results. Enzo Delaney, your race winner for the second time this season, ahead of Freddie Slater and Akshay Bora rounding out the podium. Pedro Clero 4th, Mattia De Paolo in 5th, Taito Kato 6th, with Nikita Bedra in 7th, Dion Gowda winning rookie and also 8th overall. Then we have Ian Eichmann's 9th, Kanato Lay 10th, Michael Belov in 11th, Enzo Yer in 12th, Edu Robinson in 13th, Kasper Stuka in 14th, and Ruiki Liu in 15th place, with Evan Giltez 16th, Nanavid Biran Bakhti in 17th place, along with Giovanni Maschio 18th, Aditya Kulkarni, Tim Gerhardt, Yaroslav Vasalo, Sakura Al-Maushiri, Jack Beaton and Edward Borgner, with Jin Nakamura further down. Of course, we said goodbye to Javier Segura, Rashid Al-Dahiri, Zachary David, and of course, Hugh Yamakoshi, who also retired from the race. But now the drivers make their way back into Parc Ferme. What an ending to that incredible Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine race here at Imola. High drama towards the bitter end. Enzo Delaney bouncing back after the tricky Paul Ricard weekend and returns to a big clap as he brings the car to a stop. Freddie Slater will line up on the second spot, and alongside Enzo Delaney will be his teammate Akshay Bora. Double the reason for RHGP to celebrate, and double the occasion that this young man is a race winner here in Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, and that is a rightful celebration there from Enzo Delaney. And Hadrian David immediately comes over to embrace him as well, as do the rest of the RHGP team. 17 years of age from Shanghai, China. French-Chinese driver, of course. Various karting successes between the realms of 2016 and 2022. Made his debut in single-seaters in 2023. Was the Spanish F4 rookie champion and 4th overall with 2 wins and 10 podiums that same year. Also taking part in Italian F4 and Euro 4. 2024, he made his Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine debut. Finishing 4th as well that season in the Macau Grand Prix. And also took part in the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship with a victory achieved there, finishing 5th in the championship with 3 podiums. He has had plenty of success as this young man, and surely more to come from Enzo Dellini. We'll take a look now at our top 3. There is Akshay Bora, of course, the man that managed to land a crucial P3 blow. Freddie Slater, second, nearly losing second, though, at the very start of the race. It went into the hands of Pedro Clero, but he fought back, did Freddie Slater. But no fighting against this man. He silenced them all for his second race win here at Imola, Enzo Dellini.
A very tricky race, red flag, safety cars, but you confirmed a very good pace and management under pressure.
Yeah, it was a good race. We had a red flag, I think 2 safety cars, and it was raining before, so the track was a bit low grip. But yeah, it was not easy in the front because this track, if you make one mistake, you can be in the gravel, it can be race over. So yeah, it was not easy out front, but we did a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, he definitely made it look easy, did Enzo Dellini. So let's run you through the highlights of what happened in that exceptional race, certainly that exceptional closure to a race. Very poor start for Freddie Slater, unfortunately, allowed Pedro Clero to move up alongside, but a decent start for our eventual winner. Enzo Dellini, of course, confirming his place at the top. Rubbing onto the grass a little bit was Akshay Bora as they came through Tamburello, coming through turns 2 and eventually turns 3 as well. The 2 ARTs very nearly coming close to contact. Of course, Evan Chilter and Taito Kato were wheel to wheel. It would eventually lead up to the incident where we saw Hiyu Yamakoshi up the inside, coming in towards Piratella, eventually spinning off, heading in through the apex of the corner and into the gravel trap and into the barrier. Eventually, further up the road then, same lap, was this incident. A spin for Zachary David, eventually making contact with Jack Beaton, who lost his front wing, and he had to come in. A red flag was, of course, brought out. Very quickly, we got back underway then for green flag conditions. Enzo Dellini then coasted onwards, and so did Freddie Slater, ahead of Pedro Clero coming in towards Tamburello. A fantastic move that granted the Prema driver back his second place. Later on, Akshay Bora would also look to make moves himself, marking RHGP with a P1 position, also P3 in the same sitting. And we also had yet another incident further on as well. Rashid Al-Dahiri being guided by Ian Eichmans, who took a little bit of an uncomfortable run coming through the Tamburello section, but it would not harm this man, Enzo Dellini, victorious for a second time this season, and only the second time that RHGP have won in this championship here at Imola. So now the podium celebrations come into full swing. Enzo Dellini on top, step, Freddie Slater on the left-hand side. Probably be ruined the day that he made that error at the start of the race, because there could have been more on offer for the Prema driver. Akshay Bora sat third on the podium as well. And Tion Gauda, winning rookie.
Trofeo di bronzo che viene consegnato al portacolori del team Race GP Akshay Bora.
The trophy being presented, the P3 place trophy, going Akshay Bora's way.
Per incensare al secondo posto l'asso britannico Freddie Slater.
And Freddie Slater receiving the second place trophy.
Trofeo che testimonia la vittoria. Quello più ambito è il talentuoso pilota di Francia, Enzo Dellini, lo mostra con orgoglio al pubblico.
Enzo Dellini, winner's trophy going his way for RHGP as well. Could be immensely significant for the championship. And the RHGP team picking up a deserved winner's trophy for the team. And the Pirelli representative presenting the winning rookies trophy to one Dion Gouda of Van Amersfoort Racing Team. And now we have the French national anthem in honor of Enzo Dellini. So there we have it, folks. Race winner Enzo Dellini. He'll be looking to go again tomorrow, though. We'll be back with more action on Sunday. Join us at 10 to 10 local time tomorrow. Goodbye.
First of all, on your right.